I was 9 years old when I found the first car tracker, a tiny blinking device stuck under Dad's sleek Porsche like a secret nobody wanted me to know. My name's Amara Davis, and I'm the adopted daughter of Nathan Harper, a luxury car dealer, who built an empire selling million-dollar vehicles to folks who never blinked at the price. Dad's white, I'm black, and that difference painted a target on my back in Newport, Rhode Island, where wealth and whispers went hand in hand. I'd always loved cars, sketching engines, tweaking designs, dreaming of building one that ran on sunlight. Dad saw my spark and turned a corner of our house into a workshop where we'd spend weekends elbow-deep in grease, laughing over the hum of a V8. But outside those walls, the world wasn't so kind. At school, my teacher, Ms. Reynolds, raised her eyebrows when I aced a physics test, saying, "Amara, are you sure you didn't have help?" As if my brain couldn't handle the math. Kids stopped inviting me to birthday parties once their parents realized I wasn't just a visitor at the Harper house. Even the crossing guard let the other kids go first, leaving me standing on the curb like I didn't belong. I tried telling Dad, but he'd pat my head and say, "They just need time to know you, sweetheart." His love was real, but his eyes missed the shadows I lived in every day. Then came Cassandra Langley, Dad's new fiancée, who swept into our lives like a summer breeze, all smiles and blonde hair. She was the daughter of Victor Langley, who owned a rival dealership, and her charm had Dad wrapped around her finger in months. She moved into our house, her heels clicking on the marble floors, and started changing things, the African sculptures Dad bought to honor my heritage, wooden masks and woven figures that made me feel connected to a past I barely knew disappeared, replaced by pale paintings that looked like they belonged in a hotel lobby. "We need a cohesive look, Nathan," she'd say, her voice sweet as honey. But I caught the way her eyes slid over me, cold and sharp, when Dad wasn't looking. One night I overheard her on the phone, whispering, "The kid's a problem. Once we're set, she'll be out." My stomach twisted. But I didn't tell Dad. He was too busy planning his big move, a line of eco-friendly cars for Europe, a dream he said would secure our future. I wanted to believe he'd see through her, but every time I mentioned the slights, the store clerk following me, the neighbor asking if I was the gardener's kid, he'd say, "Don't make it about race, Amara. People are just curious." That's when I started my blog, Amara's Auto Adventures, using my tablet to share my car designs and, secretly, my suspicions. I posted about engines and aerodynamics, but between the lines, I hinted at the truth I was piecing together. The tracker under the Porsche was my first clue. I found it by accident, chasing a stray soccer ball into the garage. It was small, magnetic, with a red light pulsing like a heartbeat. I didn't know what it meant, but I knew it wasn't right. I blogged about it vaguely, calling it a car mystery, and got 50 hits overnight. Readers commented, "What's next, Amara?" and I felt a flicker of hope, like someone out there might listen. At school, things got worse. I entered a STEM fair with a solar-powered car model I'd built from scratch, spending weeks wiring circuits in our workshop. The judges circled my project, one muttering, "This is awfully advanced for a kid." I stood tall, explaining how the panels converted sunlight, but their smiles were thin, and a woman in the crowd whispered, "Her dad must have done it." My chest tightened, but I forced a smile, knowing I had to keep going. That night I posted on my blog, "Why do they think I can't build something great? I'll show them." The post got 100 likes, and a few kind comments. "You're a star." Amara kept me from feeling alone. Cassandra's mask slipped more each day. She'd suggest coding camps for me, acting like she cared, but when Dad left the room, she'd say things like, "Amara, you should try to blend in more. All this heritage stuff is divisive." She meant the sculptures, the books on black inventors I kept on my shelf, the way I wore my hair in braids. I started watching her, noticing how she'd linger in Dad's office, flipping through his client files when she thought no one was around. I bought a mini recorder with my allowance, hiding it in a pencil case, and caught her muttering about deals falling through on a call. I played it for Dad, my hands shaking, but he frowned and said, "She's probably talking about her dad's business." "Don't spy, Amara," Cassandra overheard, her lips curling slightly, and the next day my recorder was gone from my backpack. I blogged about it, calling it a lost tool, and a reader commented, "Keep your eyes open, kid. You're onto something." That comment lit a fire in me, a feeling that I wasn't just shouting into the void. School was another battlefield. Ms. Reynolds pulled me aside after I qualified for a national science contest, saying, "Are you sure you want to take a spot?" From someone more suited. Her words cut deep, but I nodded and walked away, my fists clenched. I organized a car design contest for my class, hoping to prove myself. 20 kids joined, sketching wild ideas, and I entered a hybrid truck I'd designed. Class cheered when I presented it, but Ms. Reynolds said, "It's nice, but maybe stick to simpler projects." I blogged about it, writing, "They keep pushing me down, but I'm climbing back up." The post went viral in Newport, hitting 500 views, and a local mom commented, "Your truck's amazing, Amara." It was a small victory, but it felt huge. Lena Brooks, our groundskeeper, became my lifeline. She'd worked for Dad for 15 years, her hands calloused from tending the estate's gardens. One afternoon, while we sorted tools in her shed, she told me about growing up in Georgia, facing signs that said whites only. "I see that woman," she said, nodding toward the house where Cassandra was rearranging furniture. "She's trouble, Amara. I've got my own notes on her." Lena showed me photos she'd snapped Cassandra slipping papers into her purse from Dad's desk. It was proof I wasn't imagining things. We found another tracker, this time on Dad's Tesla, its signal pinging to a server I couldn't trace. Lena taught me to hide my blog posts behind a password, and we stored our evidence on a flash drive she kept in her toolbox. I blogged about hidden signals, and a reader messaged, "You're brave, Amara. Don't stop." For the first time, I felt like I had allies, even if they were strangers online. Dad's business started faltering. Clients he'd known for years canceled orders, saying they'd heard rumors about quality issues. He spent nights on the phone, his voice tense, while Cassandra hovered, offering coffee and sympathy. I tried showing him the Tesla tracker, but he snapped, "Amara, enough with the detective games. I'm under enough pressure." Cassandra chimed in, "She's just seeking attention. Nathan, maybe a boarding school would help her focus." Her words were soft, but they landed like a slap. I ran to my room, tears burning, and blogged, "When nobody believes you, what do you do?" The post got 300 comments, some saying, "Keep fighting, Amara," others spewing hate, "Go back where you came from." I deleted the worst ones, but they lingered in my mind, a reminder of the world I was up against. Lena and I kept digging. She told me about Victor Langley's past, how his dealership had crushed smaller businesses, especially those owned by folks who looked like me. We found a pattern. A black-owned dealership in Atlanta went bankrupt after a mysterious audit. A Latino dealer in Miami lost everything when his cars were sabotaged. I blogged about business shadows, hinting at the connections, and a reporter from a local paper messaged me, asking to talk. I wasn't ready yet, but it gave me hope. The STEM fair results came in nigh 1 second place, but the judges' comments said my project lacked originality, even though I'd built every piece myself. Ms. Reynolds smiled thinly when I got the certificate, and I knew she'd spoken to them. I posted about it, writing, "Second place is still a win, but I'm aiming higher." Readers cheered, one saying, "You're changing the game." Amara. Cassandra's grip tightened. She suggested moving my books to the attic, saying, "We need space for a proper guest room." I overheard her on another call, saying, "Once the gala's done, Nathan's business will tank, and the kids out." The gala was Dad's big night, where he'd signed a deal to sell his eco-cars in Europe. I knew whatever she was planning would happen there. I showed Dad the Tesla tracker again, begging him to listen, but he shook his head, exhaustion in his eyes. "Amara, you're making things harder. I love you, but this has to stop." Cassandra stood behind him, her hand on his shoulder, and I saw the triumph in her smile. I blogged that night, my fingers trembling. "The truth is heavy, but I'm not letting go." A reader replied, "You're stronger than they know." As I closed my tablet, I felt a fire growing inside me, a promise to protect Dad and prove I belonged no matter what it took. I froze, my heart slamming against my ribs. As Cassandra's voice sliced through the quiet of our garage, "The tracker's gone, someone's been snooping." She stood by Dad's Tesla, her phone pressed to her ear, her blonde hair catching the glow of the overhead lights. I was crouched behind a stack of tires, my mini recorder worry in my pocket, catching every word. "It's that kid. I know it," she hissed, her tone venomous. No trace of the sugary smile she wore around Dad at 9 years old. I, Amara Davis, was unraveling a plot that could destroy my adoptive father, Nathan Harper, and send me back to a foster system that had already chewed me up. Newport, Rhode Island, was supposed to be my home, but it felt like a maze of secrets and sneers, where my black skin made me a stranger in Dad's wealthy white world. I'd found 2 car trackers, one on his Porsche, one on his Tesla. I knew Cassandra, Dad's fiancée, was behind them. My blog, Amara's Auto Adventures, was my weapon, a place to share my car designs and hint at the truth. But now I was in deeper than I'd planned, and the fear in my gut told me Cassandra wasn't just playing games. I'd always been a tinkerer, sketching solar-powered cars and dreaming of a future where I'd build something that changed the world. Dad, a luxury car dealer with a showroom full of $2 million vehicles, saw my talent and built me a workshop where we'd spend Sundays tuning engines, our laughter drowning out the hum of machinery. But outside our bubble, racism shadowed me. At school, Ms. Reynolds, my teacher, questioned my science projects, her eyes narrowing as if a black girl couldn't know aerodynamics. Kids whispered I didn't belong in their mansions, and store clerks trailed me like I'd steal something. I tried telling Dad, but he'd say, "They're just adjusting. Amara, give it time." His love was my anchor, but his blindness to the hate I faced left me adrift. Cassandra's arrival made it worse. She was the daughter of Victor Langley, a rival dealer in Savannah, Georgia, and her charm had Dad planning a wedding in 3 months. She'd smile at me, suggesting art classes, but I caught her swapping my African masks for bland canvases, saying, "We need a unified look, Nathan." Her words were polite, but her eyes held a chill that made my skin prickle that night in the garage. I slipped out before Cassandra saw me, my recorder burning a hole in my pocket. Back in my room, I uploaded a blog post titled "Shadows in the Garage," writing, "Some cars hide secrets. I'm finding them." It got 700 hits by morning, with comments like, "You're fearless, Amara," but also hate. "Stay in your lane, kid." I ignored the trolls and focused on my next move. I'd started a video project, Kids Behind the Wheel, filming myself explaining car parts to teach other kids. It was my cover to record Cassandra without her suspecting. I set up a tiny camera in the workshop, disguised as a tool rack, and caught her slipping a file from Dad's briefcase. My blog hinted at it sometimes. The real theft isn't what you see. Readers ate it up, and a Savannah reporter messaged me asking, "What's brewing in Newport?" I wasn't ready to spill, but it felt like the world was starting to listen. School was a minefield. Ms. Reynolds called me out in class, saying my video project was disruptive and I should focus on appropriate hobbies. I'd launched a mentorship program with 10 classmates, pairing them with local mechanics to learn car basics, but she shut it down, claiming it lacked supervision. I knew it was because I'd invited kids from the community center, mostly Black and Latino, to join. I blogged about it, writing, "They say my ideas are too big. I say they're scared of who I'm lifting up." The post hit 1,000 shares, and a mechanic named Jamal offered to host the program at his shop. Inside, I was a mess, proud but exhausted, wondering why proving myself was a full-time job. For readers, my fight mirrors their own battles against gatekeepers, stirring admiration and frustration. Lena Brooks, our groundskeeper, was my rock. She was 60 with gray braids and a laugh that warmed you like cocoa. One evening, as we sorted bolts in her shed, she told me about marching in Savannah during the civil rights era, facing gears and worse. "Cassandra's kind ain't new," she said, her eyes sharp. "She wants you gone because you don't fit her world." Lena had her own evidence texts she'd screenshot from Cassandra's phone, left on the kitchen counter, about client leaks. We found a third tracker on Dad's Lamborghini, its signal tied to Victor's network. Lena's hand shook as she held it, saying, "This is bigger than we thought." Her fear scared me, but her strength kept me going. I blogged about hidden wires, and a reader commented, "You're a hero, Amara." I didn't feel heroic, just a kid trying to save her dad. Cassandra's villainy ran deep. I learned from Lena that Victor had a history of ruining rivals, especially those who championed diversity in Savannah. He'd framed a black dealer for tax fraud, bankrupting his family. In Chicago, he'd sabotaged a woman's dealership with fake safety violations. Cassandra wasn't just his daughter, she was his apprentice, driven by ambition and a belief that people like me didn't belong in their elite circle. I overheard her at a charity event, whispering to a guest, "Nathan's adoption was a publicity stunt, the girl's a liability." Her prejudice wasn't just personal, it was a legacy, cold and calculated, aiming to crush Dad's dream of eco-cars in Europe. Inside I'd burned with anger, but I also felt small, wondering if I could outsmart someone so ruthless. Readers feel this tension, her menace looms large, making Amara's courage shine brighter. I showed Dad the Lamborghini tracker in my video of Cassandra taking files, but he rubbed his temples, saying, "Amara, you're blowing this out of proportion. She's family." Cassandra, nearby, cooed, "She's under stress. Nathan, maybe a summer camp in Vermont would help." Her suggestion wasn't care, it was exile. Dad nodded, and I felt my world crack. I blogged, "When your family turns away, where do you go?" The post got 2,000 views, with comments urging, "Don't give up." I met Jamal at his shop where my mentorship kids built model cars. He was 30, with a quick smile and a past in foster care like me. "You're shaking things up," he said, showing me how to encrypt my videos. His belief in me was a lifeline, but I lay awake that night, wondering if Dad would ever see the truth. Readers connect with this heartbreak, rooting for a resilience. The drama spiked at a school assembly. I'd made a Kids Behind the Wheel video, interviewing my mentorship group about their designs. It went viral, hitting 5,000 views. But Miss Reynolds called me to the principal's office, saying it promoted division by featuring minority kids. The principal, Mr. Tate, hinted at reporting Dad for neglect, citing my obsessive projects. I fought tears, saying, "I'm just teaching what I love." Back home, Cassandra had convinced Dad to limit my workshop time, claiming it fed my imagination. I blogged, "They're trying to silence me, but my voice is growing." A Savannah activist group shared it, and 3,000 followers joined. Inside, I was torn, thrilled by support, terrified of losing Dad. The audience feels this escalation, their hearts racing. With Amara's Lena and I uncovered more. Using Jamal's software, we traced the trackers to a Savannah server linked to Victor. We found emails Cassandra sent to Miss Reynolds urging her to monitor me. The betrayal stung. My teacher was in on it. Lena shared a story about her sister, a mechanic who lost her shop to Victor's schemes. "He hates anyone who breaks his mold," she said. I saw Cassandra's cruelty clearer now. She didn't just want Dad's business, she wanted me erased, a black girl who dared to dream big. I filmed a new video, Why We Build, showing my mentorship kids joy, and posted it with a caption, "They can't stop our dreams." It hit 10,000 views, and Jamal's shop got donations to keep the program alive. Readers cheer this, defiance, feeling Amara's growing power. The gala was 2 weeks away, where Dad would sign his Europe deal. I overheard Cassandra on a call, saying, "The Lamborghini's set, he won't make it to the signing." My blood ran cold. She was planning something deadly. I showed Dad the emails, but he shouted, "Enough, Amara, you're tearing us apart." Cassandra suggested a therapist to fix my delusions, and Dad agreed to meet one. I blogged, "The truth hurts, but lies kill." The post exploded, hitting 15,000 views. With a Savannah detective messaging, "Send me what you have." I hesitated, scared of the consequences, but Lena hugged me, saying, "You're not alone." As I uploaded my latest video, my camera caught Cassandra slipping a device into Dad's briefcase, her face a mask of triumph. My hands shook, knowing I'd just recorded the key to everything, or the moment that could end it all. My breath caught as I stared at the grainy footage on my tablet, Cassandra's silhouette slipping a sleek device into Dad's Lamborghini's engine bay, her movements precise, like a predator setting a trap. I was 9 years old, Amara Davis, crouched in my bedroom, heart hammering, knowing I'd just captured proof that my dad's fiancée was planning to kill him. The video, recorded by my hidden camera in the garage, showed her attaching what looked like a remote trigger, her face calm, but her eyes glinting with something dark: hate, ambition, or both. I was a black girl in Newport, Rhode Island, adopted by Nathan Harper, a white luxury car dealer whose dreams of eco-friendly cars in Europe were about to crash, and I was the only one who could stop it. My blog, Amara's Auto Adventures, had grown to 15,000 followers, a lifeline where I shared car designs and veiled truths about Cassandra's schemes. But this footage was a bomb, and I wasn't sure I could handle the explosion. I thought of Dad's tired eyes, his voice sharp when I'd shown him the trackers on his Porsche and Tesla, saying, "Amara, you're breaking us apart." I thought of Lena Brooks, our groundskeeper who'd risked everything to help me, and Jamal, the mechanic who believed in my mentorship program. But most of all, I thought of Cassandra, whose polished smile hid a venom that wanted me erased, not just from Dad's life, but from the world she thought I didn't belong in. I'd always been the kid who saw patterns, who could trace a car's wiring like a map to its heart. Dad loved that about me, building a workshop where we'd tinker with engines, our hands greasy, our laughter loud. But outside our bubble, Newport's wealth came with a price, racism that clung like damp salt. At school, Ms. Reynolds, my teacher, accused me of cheating on a math test, her lips tight as if my perfect score was a crime. Neighbors whispered I was the helps kid when I rode my bike past their mansions. I'd tried to tell Dad, but he'd say, "They're just curious, Amara, show them who you are." His faith in people hurt more than their slights, because it left me alone in a fight he couldn't see. Cassandra made it worse, her blonde hair and designer dresses a mask for her true goal, to destroy Dad's business and send me back to foster care. She was Victor Langley's daughter, a rival dealer from Savannah, Georgia, and together they'd crushed anyone who dared rise in their world, especially those who looked like me. I'd found 3 trackers, proof of their sabotage, and my Kids Behind the Wheel video project had caught her stealing files. But Dad, drowning in client cancellations and a federal audit, thought I was the problem, not her. That footage changed everything. I uploaded it to my encrypted cloud, hands trembling, and blogged a cryptic post, "Some cars carry danger. I'm watching." It hit 20,000 views overnight, with comments like, "You're unstoppable, Amara," but also threats, "Back off, kid, or you'll regret it." I ignored the hate, focusing on my next step. I'd started a Truth Trackers Club at school, teaching 10 kids to spot car issues like faulty brakes, a way to share my skills and keep eyes on Cassandra. Met at Jamal's shop, where he showed us how to check wiring. One girl, Sophia, a quiet Latina, whispered, "My dad says people like us don't get to dream big." I hugged her, saying, "We're dreaming anyway." Inside I was scared. Cassandra's trap was bigger than I could handle. Scared Dad would send me to that Vermont camp she'd suggested. But Sophia's trust, Jamal's nod, kept me going. For readers, this moment sparks hope. A reminder that community can lift you when the world pushes you down. Cassandra's cruelty was a force of its own. I learned more from Lena, who'd seen her kind before people who used charm to hide hate. Over tea in her shed, Lena shared a story about her cousin, a Savannah mechanic whose shop Victor had shut down with fake permits. "Cassandra's not just following her daddy," Lena said, her voice low. "She's hungry for power, and you're in her way." I saw it in Cassandra's eyes at dinner, when she'd pat my hand and say, "Amara, you should focus on fitting." In her words, a velvet glove over a fist. She believed black girls like me were props, not people. And her plan to ruin Dad was personal, a way to erase the mistake of my adoption. I dug deeper, using Jamal's software to hack her email. One message to Ms. Reynolds read, "Keep Amara distracted. She's nosy." Another to Victor said, "The gala's the endgame. Nathan's car won't make it." My stomach churned, but I felt a fire too. I need to protect Dad, to prove I belonged. Readers feel this tension. Cassandra's menace, making Amara's courage a beacon. School was a war zone. Ms. Reynolds called me out during a science fair prep, saying my Truth Trackers Club was inappropriate for promoting mistrust. I'd entered a hybrid car model, but she disqualified it, claiming it lacked originality. The other kids, mostly white, got praise for simpler projects. I blogged about it, writing, "They say my ideas don't belong. I say they're scared of my truth." The post hit 25,000 views, and a Savannah activist group invited me to speak at a youth rally. I was thrilled but terrified. What if Cassandra found out? Inside I wrestled with doubt, wondering if I was strong enough to face her. Sophia's drawing of my car, taped to my locker, gave me strength, but Miss Reynolds' next move crushed it. She sent a letter home, accusing me of disruptive behavior and recommending a specialized program in Massachusetts. Dad read it at dinner, his face grim, and Cassandra nodded, saying, "She needs structure, Nathan." I pleaded, "I'm not the problem." But he sighed, "Amara, you're making this harder." My heart broke, but I blogged, "When they push you out, you push back." Readers ache with Amara, their frustration at Nathan's blindness fueling their support. Lena and Jamal became my anchors. Jamal, who'd grown up in foster care, saw my fear and shared his own story, how he'd built his shop despite doubters. "You're rewriting the rules," he said, helping me analyze the Lamborghini footage. The trigger was wired to disable brakes after 20 miles, a death trap for Dad's drive to the gala. Lena, meanwhile, dug into Victor's past. She found news clippings. A black dealer in Atlanta lost his business after a random audit. A Latina dealer in Chicago faced sabotage. Victor and Cassandra target anyone who challenges their world, Lena said, her eyes fierce. "Your dad's adoption of you made him a mark." I saw Cassandra's mind clearer now. She wasn't just greedy. She was obsessed with control, believing diversity was a flaw to be fixed. Her prejudice wasn't loud, it was surgical, cutting away anyone who didn't fit her vision. I blogged, "Some people build walls to keep others out. I'm tearing them down," a Savannah detective replied. "Send evidence ASAP." I hesitated, scared of the fallout, but Lena's hug steadied me. The drama exploded at a community fair. I'd organized a future mechanics booth where my Truth Trackers showed off car models. Over 100 people came, and Sophia's solar bike won cheers. But Miss Reynolds arrived with the principal, Mr. Tate, who shut us down, saying it lacked permits. Cassandra was there, clapping politely, but her smile was a blade. Later I overheard her call Victor. "The audit's hitting Nathan hard. The galas are shot." I filmed it with my phone, my hands shaking, and showed Dad that night. "She's sabotaging you," I cried. But he shouted, "Amara, stop this nonsense. I'm losing clients because of stress, and you're adding to it." Cassandra suggested a family counselor, and Dad agreed, saying, "We'll fix this." Amara, I ran to my room, tears falling, and blogged, "When your family betrays you, who's left?" The post hit 30,000 views, with comments like, "You're our hero, Amara." Inside I felt like a failure, wondering if I'd lost Dad for good. Readers feel this gut punch, their hope for Amara battling their anger at Nathan. Jamal had a plan. He'd connected with a Savannah journalist, Maya, who ran a podcast, Coastal Truth. She wanted my story but needed hard proof. I gave her the Lamborghini footage, encrypted, and she promised to air it if we got more. Lena and I checked Dad's car again, finding a tampered fuel line, set to leak after 10 miles. We fixed it with a $15 seal, but the danger felt closer. I started a Safe Rides campaign, teaching 20 kids to check their parents' cars for issues. Sophia's mom thanked me, saying, "You're teaching us to see." I blogged about it, writing, "Safety starts with truth." The post trended, hitting 40,000 views. And Maya's podcast teaser, "A Kid's Fight for Justice," got 10,000 listens. I was proud, but haunted. Cassandra's shadow loomed larger, her plan clearer. She wasn't just after Dad's business. She wanted to rewrite our family, erasing me to prove her world was right. I saw her at breakfast, her hand on Dad's, saying, "Amara needs a fresh start." Her voice was soft, but her intent was a knife. I stood frozen in the Newport Gala's glittering chaos, my 9-year-old heart pounding as I blurted, "She planted a car tracker," to a crowd of 300, their diamond-encrusted wrists glinting under chandeliers. Cassandra Langley, my dad's fiancée, spun toward me, her sapphire gown shimmering but her eyes blazing with fury, knowing I'd just exposed her deadly plan to ruin Dad and erase me from his life. I'm Amara Davis, a black girl adopted by Nathan Harper, a white luxury car dealer whose eco-friendly car launch for Europe was the prize Cassandra and her father, Victor, wanted to steal. The Cliffwalk Gala, held in a mansion overlooking Rhode Island's crashing waves, was their stage to frame Dad for fraud and sabotage his Lamborghini to crash. But I was here with Lena Brooks, our groundskeeper, to stop them. My Amara Adventures blog had 40,000 followers now, a beacon for my truth. And my kids behind the wheel videos had gone viral. But this moment, facing a sea of skeptical faces, was my biggest test. I clutched my tablet, loaded with footage of Cassandra's schemes, my hands trembling with fear and fire, knowing I was a black girl in a white world that rarely believed me. But I had to save Dad, no matter the cost. The gala was Dad's moment to shine his $75 million deal to sell eco-cars in Europe set to sign at 9 p.m. I'd slipped in as a junior server, my apron hiding a camera streaming to a cloud vault set up by Jamal, the mechanic who'd become my mentor. Lena, stationed in a van 500 feet away, monitored feeds from cameras we'd planted in Dad's office and garage. We'd fixed the Lamborghini's tampered brakes and fuel line, saving Dad from a deadly crash. But Cassandra's plan was big: documents to trigger a federal audit and fake adoption papers to rip me from Dad's custody. I'd felt the weight of her hate all along. The way she'd replaced my African sculptures with sterile art, whispering to Dad that I needed to fit in. Her prejudice wasn't just personal, it was a mission, rooted in her belief that I, a black girl, didn't belong in their elite circle. She and Victor, from Savannah, Georgia, had crushed rivals before minority dealers in Atlanta and Chicago because they dared to rise. I saw it in her eyes at every dinner, her smile, a mask for disdain, her ambition to control Dad's empire, fueled by a need to keep her world pure. Inside, I battled terror and defiance, wondering if my voice could break through new walls. I'd spent the day preparing, my Truth Trackers Club at school turning into a movement. Sophia, my friend from the community center, had helped me set up a live stream, Why Kids See Truth, to share our car safety lessons. It hit 50,000 views, with comments like, "Amara, you're changing lives." But at school, Ms. Reynolds had escalated her attacks, telling the principal I was unstable for exposing her bias in my videos. Mr. Tate called Dad, suggesting a therapeutic program in Massachusetts, and Cassandra nodded along, saying, "She's struggling." Nathan, Dad, stressed by 3 more client cancellations, $5 million in losses, agreed to consider it, his voice heavy when he told me, "Amara, we need peace." I blogged that morning, "When They Silence You, Scream Louder," and a Savannah journalist, Maya, replied, "I'm at the gala, send me everything." Her podcast, Coastal Truth, had 20,000 listeners, and she was ready to amplify my evidence. Inside, I felt a spark of hope, but also dread. Cassandra was steps ahead, and I was running out of time. At the gala, I moved through the crowd, serving juice to guests who barely saw me, their chatter about million-dollar cars drowning out my racing thoughts. Dad stood by a $3 million eco-car, explaining its solar panels to a German investor, his face tired but proud. I wanted to run to him, to beg him to listen, but I saw Cassandra circling, her gown catching every light, her whispers to guests planting doubts about Dad's business. I caught her meeting Victor by a marble fountain, their voices low. My earpiece buzzed with Lena's update. "They're reviewing forged papers. Federal agents are here." My stomach dropped. Victor had paid off officials to arrest Dad for fraud tonight. I checked my tablet. The garage camera showed the Lamborghini, now safe. But the office feed caught Cassandra slipping a fake ledger into Dad's briefcase. Her mind was a machine, calculating every move to frame him, her prejudice a fuel that burned hotter than ambition. She believed Dad's adoption of me was a flaw, a crack in the elite world she and Victor ruled. I blogged a quick post, "Truth is coming," and it hit 60,000 views. With Maya texting, "Ready when you are." I needed more proof. I slipped into a service hall where Sophia, disguised as a caterer, handed me a USB drive with our latest footage. Vector in Savannah, saying, "Nathan's accident will clean up his mistake of adopting her." Sophia's eyes were wide, a bracelet on my wrist a reminder of her trust. "You can do this, Amara," she whispered. I nodded, but inside I was a storm, scared I'd failed Dad, angry at the world that doubted me, hopeful that Maya's platform could change everything. Back in the ballroom, I saw the federal agents, 2 men in dark suits, moving toward Dad. Cassandra smiled, guiding them, her voice smooth as she said, "Nathan's had some financial troubles." I knew it was now or never. I ran to the stage, where a 20-foot screen displayed car designs, and plugged my tablet into the projector. My fingers shook as I opened the live stream, my voice cracking as I shouted, "Cassandra planted a tracker to crash Dad's car. She's framing him." The crowd gasped, and Cassandra lunged, yelling, "She's lying." But the footage played her planting the trigger, Victor's damning words, emails to Ms. Reynolds plotting against me. The room erupted. Guests whispered, "Is this real?" while others muttered, "She's just a kid." Cassandra's face twisted, her composure cracking as she hissed, "You little troublemaker." I stood my ground, saying, "You wanted me gone because I'm black, but I'm Dad's daughter, and you can't change that." My words echoed, and Sophia from the crowd shouted, "Tell them, Amara." Lena's voice crackled in my earpiece. "The stream's at 100,000 views. Keep going." I showed the forged adoption papers, the fake ledger, and a clip of Victor admitting to sabotaging minority dealers. The audience's murmurs grew, some shocked, others uncomfortable, their privilege challenged. I felt exposed, a black girl on a stage of wealth, but also powerful, my truth cutting through their denial. Readers feel this surge, their hearts racing with Amara's bravery, their anger at Cassandra's betrayal burning bright. Dad pushed through the crowd, his face pale. "Amara, what's going on?" he asked. But before I could answer, Victor stormed forward, his voice booming. It is absurd. Nathan's business is failing because he's weak, adopting a kid who doesn't belong." His words were a slap, and the crowd's silence stung worse. I saw pain in Dad's eyes, but also doubt, and it broke me. I played the final clip, Cassandra, saying, "Once Nathan's gone, the girl's back in foster care." The room froze, and a woman gasped, "That's disgusting." I looked at Dad, pleading, "I'm trying to save you." Cassandra grabbed my tablet, smashing it, but Lena burst in with Maya, holding a laptop streaming the same footage to Coastal Truth's 50,000 listeners. Maya took the mic, saying, "This evidence is real. We've sent it to state police." Victor's mask slipped. "Nathan's adoption was a mistake," he shouted. "People like her don't belong in our world." His racism hung in the air, raw and ugly, and the crowd shifted, some nodding uncomfortably, others turning away. A state police officer stepped forward, saying, "Victor Langley, Cassandra Langley, you're under arrest for fraud and attempted murder." They cuffed Cassandra, her eyes wild as she screamed, "You'll regret this." Dad stood stunned, but he grabbed my hand, whispering, "Amara, you were right." Tears welled as I hugged him, feeling his love but also his shame for not seeing sooner. The audience erupted in chaos, some cheering, others whispering about standards and outsiders. I felt their stares, but Sophia's bracelet grounded me, and Lena's nod from the back said, "You did it." Dad halted the signing, stepping to the mic. "I've been blind," he said, voice breaking. "My daughter saw the truth, and I failed her tonight. I'm donating $100,000 to youth STEM programs, starting with Amaris." The crowd clapped, some reluctantly, but a Newport councilwoman shouted, "She's our pride." My blog hit 200,000 views, trending nationally, with hashtag #AMARASTruth. Inside, I was a mess. Relieved Dad was safe, hurt by the crowd's mixed reactions. Proud I'd stood up. Maya hugged me, saying, "You're a force." Jamal, watching the stream, texted, "You saved him." But as we left the gala, I saw Ms. Reynolds in the crowd, her eyes cold, and a note in my pocket, in Cassandra's handwriting, "This isn't over." My heart sank, knowing the fight wasn't done, and the weight of her hate lingered like a storm on the horizon. Cassandra's note burned in my pocket as I stood outside the Newport Gala, the ocean's roar mixing with the crowd's fading murmurs. This isn't over. At 9 years old, I, Amara Davis, had just exposed her and her father, Victor Langley, for trying to destroy my adoptive dad, Nathan Harper, and erase me, a black girl, from his life. The state police had dragged them away, their cuffs glinting under the mansion's lights, but her words lingered like a storm cloud, threatening to unravel the victory I'd fought so hard for. My Amara's Auto Adventures blog had hit 200,000 followers. My Kids Behind the Wheel videos had sparked a movement, and I'd saved Dad's eco-car deal, but the weight of her hate hand the world still pressed on me. I was a kid in a white elite world, adopted by a luxury car dealer whose love couldn't shield me from racism's sting. Lena Brooks, our groundskeeper, stood beside me, her hand on my shoulder, while Sophia, my friend, clutched my bracelet, her eyes wide with pride. Jamal and Maya, my allies, were still streaming the truth to thousands. But as Dad hugged me, whispering, "You were right, Amara," I wondered if the fight was truly done or if Cassandra's shadow would follow me forever. The weeks after the gala were a whirlwind. Dad's business, Harper Elite Motors, roared back to life. The $75 million Europe deal, nearly derailed by Victor's forged fraud charges, was signed in a quiet ceremony at his showroom, boosting revenue by 30%. Clients who'd counseled returned, their trust restored after Maya's Coastal Truth podcast aired our evidence footage of Cassandra planting trackers, emails plotting my removal, Victor's confession of targeting minority dealers in Savannah. In Chicago, the state police uncovered more. Victor had sabotaged a black-owned dealership in Detroit, framing its owner for tax evasion, and caused a Latina dealer's bankruptcy in Miami with fake safety violations. Cassandra wasn't just his pawn. She was his mirror, her ambition laced with a prejudice so deep it saw my adoption as a crime against their order. I saw her in my mind, her sapphire gown hiding a heart that believed I didn't belong, her every move calculated to preserve a world where people like me were props, not family. Her conviction, 7 years for fraud and attempted murder, felt like justice. But her note haunted me, a reminder that hate doesn't vanish with handcuffs. Back home, Dad was different. He sat me down in our workshop, the smell of oil grounding us, and said, "Amara, I was blind. I thought love was enough, but I didn't see what you faced." His eyes were wet, and I felt his shame, but also his resolve. He started reading books I recommended, like The Color of Law, and joined a transracial adoption group in Providence, sharing, "My daughter taught me to listen." It wasn't just words, he acted. When Ms. Reynolds, my teacher, tried to fail me on a science project, Dad stormed into school, demanding an audit of her grading. She resigned after an investigation revealed she'd targeted minority students. Her emails to Cassandra exposing her role in their plan. The principal, Mr. Tate, issued a public apology, and Newport's school board launched an equity program, training 50 teachers in its first year. I blogged about it, writing change starts when someone listens. The post hit 250,000 views, with comments like, "You're rewriting history, Amara." Inside I felt a mix of pride and exhaustion, wondering if every win would cost this much. Lena became my family, not just a groundskeeper. Dad promoted her to estate manager, giving her a 40% raise and a new office in our 7,000 square foot home. She brought back my African sculptures, adding new ones we picked together at a Boston art fair, their vibrant colors lining our halls. Lena shared more stories of her Savannah marches, her voice steady but eyes distant, saying, "We fought for you to stand here, Amara." Her strength wasn't just in her evidence texts, photos, her courage to face Cassandra, but in her belief that I could change things. She started a Roots and Wings mentorship for 20 minority kids, teaching gardening and history, and invited me to speak. I told them, "Your voice matters," even when they tried to silence it. Sophia, now my best friend, joined her solar bike model displayed at the fair. Her mom hugged me, saying, "You gave my girl hope." Readers feel this warmth. Lena's legacy and Sophia's loyalty, a reminder that allies can turn pain into power. Jamal's shop became a hub. His future mechanics program, sparked by my Truth Trackers Club, grew to 30 kids, building car models and learning safety checks. He shared his foster care story, how he'd been told he'd never succeed, and said, "Amara, you're proof we can." We launched a Drive Safe campaign, teaching 100 families to inspect cars, inspired by the trackers I'd found. My videos, now a YouTube channel with 50,000 subscribers, featured Jamal explaining wiring, Sophia showing her bike, and me sharing eco-car designs. A Savannah tech firm donated $10,000 to expand it, and I blogged, "We're building more than cars, we're building futures." Maya's podcast grew, too, her episode Amara's Triumph hitting 100,000 listens. She interviewed me, asking, "How does it feel to change Newport?" I said, "It's not just MIT's us." Inside, I was still scared. Cassandra's note, a whisper in my mind, but Jamal's grin and Maya's faith kept me grounded. Readers connect with this community, their hopes soaring as Amara's impact grows. Dad went further. He launched the Harper Future Innovators Fund, a $100,000 scholarship for minority STEM students, supporting 25 kids in its first year. At the launch, held on our 6-acre estate with 200 guests, he said, "Amara showed me the world through her eyes. This is for her." We hosted an art and tech fair, showcasing my hybrid truck design and Sophia's bike, raising $25,000 for racial equity programs. A Newport councilwoman, inspired by my blog, pledged to fund 10 more scholarships. I spoke at the event, my voice shaking but clear. Racism tried to break us, but we built something stronger. The crowd cheered, and Dad hugged me, his pride louder than words. I felt seen, finally, but also heavy, knowing the fight had changed me. Readers feel this victory, their hearts lifted by Amara's impact but sobered by her scars. Cassandra and Victor's trial revealed more. Evidence linked them to a Detroit dealer's sabotage, where a black family lost their livelihood, and a Chicago crash that injured a Latino owner. Victor got 15 years, his empire crumbling, but Cassandra's letters from jail, leaked to a Savannah paper, showed no remorse. Nathan's mistake was thinking that girl could fit. Her words cut, but they also fueled me. I started a podcast, Truth Behind the Wheel, with 20,000 listeners, sharing stories of kids like me who faced bias but kept going. My first episode, Why We Fight, featured Lena, Jamal, and Sophia, and hit 30,000 downloads. I blogged, "Hate doesn't win when we speak." A reader commented, "You're our voice, Amara." Inside, I wrestled with anger. Cassandra's hate hadn't vanished, but also hope, knowing my truth had power. 6 months later, Dad and I rebuilt a Mustang in our workshop, its engine purring under 500-watt lights. He asked, "Amara, do you ever wish I hadn't adopted you, knowing how hard it's been?" I tightened a bolt, thinking of the trackers, the gala, the note. "You're my home," I said. "The hard stuff made us stronger." He smiled, and we drove the Mustang along Newport's coast, the ocean sparkling. My podcast played through the speakers, my voice saying, "Truth is our engine." I thought back to the start, finding that first tracker, feeling alone, fighting a world that didn't want me. I'd learned that racism wasn't just hate. It was a system, quiet and loud, that took allies like Lena, Jamal, Sophia, and Maya to dismantle. I'd learned my honesty, even as a kid, could shift hearts. That distrust in relationships could be healed by truth, and that surveillance, though invasive, was sometimes the only way to expose lies. Most of all, I learned that love, I needed action to grow. As we parked, I looked at him, my hero despite his flaws, and knew we'd face the next storm together. If you were in a similar situation, with elements like a child's innocent honesty, distrust in relationships, and surveillance and privacy invasion. How would you approach it to achieve the best possible outcome? I wonder, because I'm still learning, still driving toward a world where truth wins.